is Abuja, the Federal Secretariat, where President Muhammadu Buhari's administration has once again dealt a huge blow, the NGO bill. Critics and analysts have questioned it. What does the NGO bill stand for? Who does it represent? Who does it protect? And who does it not protect? Many analysts have cried foul, saying that this NGO bill mainly aims to persecute the church. According to the Constitution, many critics have said that it is rather vague and does not have clarity on what exactly is the purpose of the bill. Now, join me, Yvonne Katsande, as I explore the story of this NGO bill and hear what Nigerians, politicians and people in play have to say about the bill. And joining me today to talk more about it and help me analyze these issues is Pastor Adebisi Akitoye Johnson.
It's beautiful to be here. It's beautiful to be here from Johannesburg. Good for you to come to Nigeria. We want to see what is happening on ground.
Absolutely, because we try and get the story firsthand from the people that are involved in the matters.
Excellent.
And get the phenomenal answers to the questions.
Excellent, Yvonne. It's nice for you to be here.
Thank you, sir. Now let's talk. Let's start first with the NGO bill.
Yes.
The NGO bill came as a surprise, if I must say, particularly at a time where lawmakers of Nigeria were facing some kind of a difficult time with the president being absent for months. But what really is this NGO bill? What are the effects, be it positive or negative?
Well, I won't say it came as a surprise. There's been efforts by government to control the NGOs. You know, before this bill, you have the Financial Reporting Council Code that attempted the same thing. And that code was just suspended. It's still there, where NGOs are supposed to be supervised in a particular way. So this bill is just another version of the Financial Reporting Council Code, you know. And what this bill intends to do is to regulate the NGOs. The bill itself has passed first and second reading. Yes, it was accelerated in such a way that it just moved very fast. What that means is that this bill, he could have gone through it himself, look at it and say, no, this bill will affect churches, it will affect my religion, and I'm the speaker. I can kill this bill. I can call this Honorable Jubril, who brought the bill, because it's a private bill, and say, look, Jubril, no, don't let us go this route. Because I'm here, I'm the speaker. Because as the speaker, he has the power.
Absolutely.
He has the power.
Yes.
The executive, the presidency, cannot get any bill to be passed in the House of Reps or in the Senate without the cooperation of the President of the Senate or the Speaker of the House. So what I'm telling you is that when they get to government, they do different things. It's amazing. It's only when they are out of government that you see them talk about, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. It's amazing. It's an irony of the political space of Nigeria, the politicians. But what I'm telling you is that, you see this bill, first of all, what does it want to achieve? It wants to regulate the NGO, regulate the churches.
Now, when I was actually in Nigeria doing this documentary, I kind of picked up a sense of frustration amongst many people that I spoke to. We are looking at a government that comes in and promises better lives, you know, better policies, everything to improve the life of the ordinary citizen, that is. And then the next thing, it's like a slap in the face. You now have a bill one after the other passed that kind of suppresses rather some sort of freedom amongst people and restricts people in the way they conduct their business and go about the daily lives in a way that is not really clear. The NGO bill has a lot of unclear things. It has a lot of questions on it. If you read through the Constitution, which I had an opportunity to actually read through the Constitution, you begin to ask yourself many questions as to when they were putting this together, what exactly were they thinking? Who did they have in mind? And what really is the purpose? And what really is the aim of this NGO bill? What do they seek to achieve? A question that we still keep asking ourselves.
When you have legislation that seeks, for example, to require organizations to re-register every 2 years, you cannot but be left asking the question, why would you require me to renew my citizenship of this country every 2 years? So this mischievous clause, which seeks to, every 2 years, to decide who can be deregistered, clearly is anti-democratic.
NGOs must now begin to be seen as development partners, working with governments, working in every sector in the society to bring about growth and development and prosperity and the good of all. NGOs must not be seen as enemies of the state or enemies of the government or enemies of any sector.
In terms of our thoughts on the bill, we're all unanimous in saying that the bill has to die. It is not fit for our purpose. It negates all international standards around our work. It's against our right to association, our right to assembly.
NGOs exist to help the government solve social problems. And so if we do more in terms of trying to clamp NGOs, then we wouldn't be as effective. And in order for us to be effective and do our work, yes, we need standards, but we can do it ourselves.
Civil society itself must now wake up to its responsibilities of ensuring that it becomes legitimate, transparent, and accountable to its stakeholders.
This bill, if passed as it is going to limit the ability of civil society organizations to do what they do best, which is support governance, help society, support the welfare of citizens, because we are going to be putting so much bottlenecks that organizations will struggle and spend all the time trying to meet while the work suffers. You can imagine that there's a flood. I cannot respond to the flood as an organization because you need to get a permission somewhere. Before we go for the main public hearing, we are hoping we can let the promoters of this bill know that it's very unpopular, it is unconstitutional, it is going to be shrinking the space for civil society participation, and it's going to hamper development in the long run.
For the people in National Assembly, as far as they care, what they just want to do is to reduce the kind of engagement that they get from the civil society. They don't want to see some of the work that the civil society, the way the civil society hold them accountable. So this whole essence of this bill is actually to reduce that accountability role that the civil society is doing, and I think that is why we need to oppose it. So it is for me, it is based on misconception. So maybe there's a need for us to clarify what does civil society stand for and what their power. Why do they want to have new laws when there are already existing laws? And those are the questions we need to ask them.
First of all, we have to look at the part of the executive, what they can do and what they can't do. Then we also have to look at the private sector and the public sector. Then the government. Now, what does the government do? The government is to make sure that things are done well and rightly. So overseeing the affairs of the NGOs, inflows, outflows, and working of the NGOs is not wrong. It's what contained in the document that makes it wrong. You see, the kind of control they want. For example, we have a lot of international NGOs coming to help out, especially this time that we have the Boko Haram, you know.
Yes, a lot of international aid coming
in through the NGOs. And you know, most of these international aids are through the implementing partners, you know, like the United Nations, for example. They don't implement directly, like DFID, they don't implement directly. It's through the NGOs that they implement. So trying to stifle the NGOs, what they can do, what they cannot do, is what makes the bill very, very wrong. Now, you know, this bill is quite similar to that of the internet bill that they brought up before. And it's the same person that brought up that bill that is bringing up this bill. Honorable Jibril is the same person that is bringing up this bill. So you could see that it's from, maybe some influence from the executive, you can say. Do you understand? You know, so if you look at it from that perspective, now all these NGOs, what do they do? Now we know from knowledge that the civil service have not been able to do a lot for the people. So if you have now non-governmental organizations coming in to try to help to do what needs to be done, I don't think the government needs to stifle their strength or what they have come to do. Their efforts, everything that they do.
I made numerous efforts to speak to the politicians, the powers that be, people in the House of the Representatives, Honorable Jibril himself, but I still haven't been able to get anything to date for him to comment on this NGO bill, him being the sponsor and the person who's spearheading the bill, to really understand where his mind is set. What exactly is the purpose? What is he thinking for him to actually bring the NGO bill? And as you speak to people that are not even of the same category within their NGOs, I spoke to people that run different NGOs from religion and a whole sort of different things. They all lean towards one way of thinking, that this NGO bill really seeks to somehow suppress the Christian.
It's absurd. It's absurd. Investing them with the powers that, like, they are above the law. It's absurd. So, with this one, you easily just know that they want to stifle the powers of the NGO. And also, people that have come to help. For example, we talk about the churches. The churches do a lot. Will I just say the churches? Let me generalize it. Let's say the religious organizations, they do a lot. Now you look at where do they get their fundings from? Okay, the church say, there's what they call morality and there's what they call the law. The church comes with morality as much as they abide by the law of the country to which they stay. But you see, the churches can take excuse before they can help their members or victims of any circumstances of whatever it is. We have a lot of NGOs that come from, we have Christian Aid, for example, that come from outside of the country. That means all these activities of these other foreign NGOs are going to stop. Why? Sometimes maybe they think that they spread the gospel in a particular way. But what's wrong with that? Love is what they spread. Giving is what they do. And make people feel comfortable. And free. Openly, there's no hidden agenda with it. Yes. No hidden agenda with it. Except you are thinking otherwise. And you know, if you read further, these are some of the things that the military government headed by General Muhammadu Buhari in the early 80s tried to do as well. Locking the door for these aids to come in through religious organizations.
Now that you've actually said something very interesting, that this is what President Buhari did at the time when the country was under military rule headed by him.
Yeah.
The country is under his administration right now, but he's coming back as a converted Democrat, which means that things are supposed to have changed from what we saw in the military rule. But then this regulatory NGO bill is more of a dictatorship kind of a bill, still under the same President Buhari, which means, or rather would you be of the opinion that he's brought in still his militaristic type of leadership?
Of course, you know, in leadership, there's what you call the idiosyncrasies of a man, the character of a man, what makes him who he is and what he does. No, whether it's democratic, whether it's dictatorial, military, is all the same thing. It's the person's character you're looking at. That's what we call the idiosyncrasy. So in politics or in political science, you study the person. You see, they tore their whether it's democratic principle, but they told their governance according to their personality.
In every sense, apparently, it might not come out directly as being said that this is what we're trying to control, but you question yourself that how can you have an NGO bill that would tell you that according to their own discretion, whichever way they feel, they will act upon it. It's like saying one moment you wake up and you say, Yvonne, you cannot do this simply because you don't like me today. And if you like me today, you know, I get a promotion, and there's no any supporting document or any relevance to this promotion. So that's, it seems as if the NGO bill is acting in that kind of manner. I traveled throughout Nigeria from Lagos to Abuja, and I spoke to many people, NGO owners, critics, analysts, and I'm sure you can hear that it's all the same. Ade Bello is an independent journalist in Abuja. She's an investigative journalist, and she also runs an NGO. And when I spoke to her, just on an open view of her being a journalist, what her analysis is of the NGO bill, and also being an NGO owner, founder, what really is her take on this, you find that she's in total agreement that the NGO bill is not really, it doesn't give any clarity as to what it seeks to do, and it somehow leans on targeting certain sectors of NGOs and categories of NGOs, but mainly on top of it all is the Christians.
So I wanted to comment on that, you know, how tribes and religions play a part in terms of you know, the governance of the country, and the fact that President Jonathan, former President Jonathan, is accused of having supported more Christians, and now we see this man coming. I want your analysis, your honest analysis on that.
Yeah, in the past, some people feel the rule of Jonathan's regime favored the Christians and all of that. So I'm not trying to throw the religion card right now. I'm just trying to look at it holistically. I mean, some people say that of course I'm a Christian, but I can't tell you that I'm one of those people benefited, or you know. But I'm just saying that some people, you know, rumor has it in some quarters that he benefited the Christians more than the Muslims, although he supported one of the laws during this regime. Yes, I can confirm that he supported the northern government laws. He did a lot of carried out so many projects in the north, but I mean, now we have a northern Muslim president, and the NGO bill seems as if it's something that's trying to attack churches. I mean, looking at the fact that it's affecting the churches, and of course they're not taxable, but now they have to know what is going to the churches, which church is making how much, what are they doing, and all of that. I think it's not fair. I don't want to believe that, but we want to see how this will go. But I advise that this bill is killed, because it will cause, on the long run, a lot of unrest. When it comes to religion, it will cause so much unrest in Nigeria. That's it.
If you look at what NGOs do in any given country, particularly in Africa, every time there's disaster, every time there's relief needed, who are the first people to come on board? It's the NGOs. Nigeria has been flooding because they're in the rainy season right now. And who were the first respondents on ground to the flood victims? It was the NGOs. We have the Boko Haram victims that have been displaced in many places in the northern of Nigeria and even other parts of Nigeria. Who are the first respondents to this crisis? It's the NGOs. So when you say that the bill seeks to regulate the NGO bill according to your own discretion, which really is not clear, you begin to question why. The government never really does anything in the forefront. They always follow. NGOs have done tremendous work. NGOs have done great work, commendable work that you can't really run away from. So I will continue with this investigation to really try and understand. It has passed its first and second reading in the House of Representatives. There is supposed to be a public hearing, and you know what really is dubious about the public hearing is that there is no date, there's no venue. So the public hearing is something that will be announced probably less than 24 hours to the time of the public hearing. And I would have loved to be there to hear and question what this is all about.